Local Women Magazine presents Local Women Podcast, the show for things that matter.
Hello and welcome to the Local Woman Podcast. Ladies over 50, do you ever feel like you're in a rut? I know that I do, and actually this isn't just for ladies, so the gentlemen can listen too. With me today, I have a lady called Nicola Goodhew. Nicola is an empowerment and lifestyle mentor for women and people over 50. So apparently many of us, and I feel this way, we get into a bit of a rut. We begin to feel we're a bit old to do anything. And this is when we must go and visit a lady like you, Nicola. So Nicola, you're very welcome to the Local Woman Podcast. It's lovely to have you here.
Kim, thank you so much for having me.
And you'll also note that Nicola is a local woman columnist. So she's been talking about things like this in our magazine as well. So Nicola, how do you become a lifestyle mentor?
Oh, goodness, what a big question to start with. Well, I actually have been coaching for a very long time, probably about 30 years, in fact. And more recently, in the last 2 to 3 years, three to four actually, I was delivering programs that I wrote around wellbeing and career development for the NHS and Super.
Yes.
And so I gravitated to the demographic of nurses and midwives, particularly in their later stages of their career, in their 50s. And this is really where this was very much born, because I could see that they really, really needed to be seen and heard and valued.
You could see a pattern that now we don't call ourselves middle-aged, by the way. We call ourselves midlife ladies, don't we?
Yes, absolutely.
Which I think is a much nicer term, because there's something awful about the word middle-aged. It just,
oh gosh,
makes you feel, like you should be wearing a pair of doctor school sandals.
So definitely. I mean, times have changed as well. And I think about my gran, who lived in Waringstown actually, and she, in her 50s, she looked like an older woman.
Well, this is
She had her hair
you got your hair
and
cut as soon as you had the children. You got the hair cut, you got the rollers in, and you wore one of those wee pennies. Do you remember even in school the teachers would have worn those little pennies, tabards? Is that what they were called?
Yeah.
Now you never see a lady with one of those these days. These days, ladies in their 60s are dressing in leopard print. So, tell me about your journey specifically with midlife.
It's been really interesting. I want to start it really with getting married, in fact. When I was 49, going on 50, I actually had my honeymoon in the Maldives on my 50th birthday.
Okay.
Now, it wasn't my first marriage.
Right.
I have got 3 children to one ex-husband. But actually starting again with a brand new partner and a wonderful life ahead in my 50s really catapulted me forward. And so from that moment on, when people would say, I just don't feel like I can do this. Who am I to do this? I just felt like I was like a walking permission slip for people.
Yes.
It was me saying, yes, you can. It's only your own language and your own thought patterns and your own beliefs letting you know that you can't. And that's because you've been conditioned by society for that reason. And I've always tried to walk my talk. And so I could use that example of being 50 and getting married and feeling like a young bride again, because it was very kind of illuminating and wonderful.
I like the way you used the word permission slip. I think there is an element of being this age, I'm 50, where you feel maybe you need permission to be having a good time. Does that sound bad? You'll see this on social media a lot. Whenever they want to attack somebody who's a little bit older, they'll go, look at the age of her, would you not know better? That kind of thing. So I think there is an element of that. We almost need to ask for permission.
Yes, from
to be happy.
From ourselves and the outside
society.
But it is society. It's the society, has put this on us and made us kind of feel smaller, sometimes insignificant, sometimes invisible. I've spoken to so many people in their 50s and 60s that no matter how they feel or how they look, they could be in a queue or they could be waiting to get something and they're jostling to be seen. But that's a very important thing, because it's not always about the vision. It's about your presence, what you bring to the situation. And so this always comes back to the inner work, the inner game. And this is where my work is really. So it's not necessarily what's outside of us. It's always about what's going on inside, what our story is, what our language for ourselves, how we care for ourselves.
Well, that's it. So what are some of the things that ladies will say to you? Will they come to you and say, oh, I'm too old to change careers? I'm too old to find a man. Nobody will ever love me. Are those the kind of things they say?
Literally all of those.
Right,
yes,
okay.
absolutely. And, things like I've been in the same job for 20 years. I just don't know how to move forward. What would I do? Who would I be? Who would listen to me? Who cares? And it's always about what's outside.
Yes.
It's what rather than thinking to themselves, do you know what? This is my time and I have a shed load of skills and attributes and wisdom.
Yes.
And people forget that. All your life experiences are all inside of you. And it's about tapping into that potential and unlocking it and unleashing it. That's what I do. That's my gift, is being able to see that in other people and bring that to the surface.
So is it as easy as just helping people to shift their mindset?
That's one very big part of it, because the mindset, everything that we think becomes a thing. What we think becomes a thing.
Yes,
and that also feeds into our actions that we take. And it has to be 80% mindset and 20% action.
Yes.
Now, in this world, conditioning-wise, we have that the wrong way round.
Right.
We think that it's all about, how we do things and what everybody else is going to think and how we've got to look perfect and all that kind of thing.
There's a lot of pressure. And do you think that's maybe through social media?
Most definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I'm here to flip the script on that. So it's 80 for us and 20 for the action that we take rather than the other way around.
So let's look at this. So say I came to you and I said, for instance, if I came to you and said, I've never been in love, will I ever find, at the age of 50, will I ever find my true love? No one's ever going to love me. Where do we start?
That's kind of where I was, in a way, when I got married. But the most important thing is, do you love yourself?
Right.
That's
so
the
how do we work that out?
question.
So what if I say, well, yeah, I quite like myself?
Yeah. Well, how do you show that? How do you demonstrate that? How do you demonstrate that with how you look after yourself on a day-to-day basis, how you talk to yourself?
It's the talking, isn't it?
Yes.
This is something that a lot of girls talk to me about, what goes on in here. Mm-hmm. So they may present as very, put together girls, but then inside they're like, you're rubbish, everyone hates you. That sort of, how do you get out of that? How do you stop that negative self-talk?
It's a wonderful question. I have actually got an exercise which I'll briefly share with you, if that's okay. It's called Betty Bitch.
Right. Love it.
Because Betty Bitch is a little bit like your inner critic.
Yes.
And that's the problem that we've got. She sits on your shoulder and she whispers things into your ear like, oh, Kim, don't do that. You're going to look really silly. If
Nobody likes you. You've got no friends.
Yeah, absolutely. That's your Betty Bitch.
Yeah.
So now the reason that she's there is to keep you safe. She is actually, she's fear. She's fear.
Yes.
She wants to keep you on the straight and narrow so that you don't do anything wrong that's going to make you feel rubbish and that you're going to fall down. So the way to get round it is use an alliteration like Betty Bitch. Think of a name that you would like to call your inner critic.
Yeah.
And then just call her out and say, well, this is your name. So it could be Betty Bitch. And just work out how to speak to her and how to not let her gain control.
Right.
Because when you know that she's fear, you're actually taking that back. You're taking the control back. And you have to befriend her. That's the key here.
Right.
You can never, ever get rid of Betty Bitch. You just can't.
Defend your inner critic.
Absolutely. Yes. Defend and befriend.
Befriend your inner critic. So the person that sits on your shoulder that goes, you're too fat for a swimsuit.
Yes.
What do you say to her?
Well, what you'd say to her is,
come on, Betty.
I'm going to pack you a nice little case that you can put your swimsuit in. I'm going to send you on a little bit of a holiday. So you can do that because the thing that you've got to remember is that she is going to be coming back to you. It's a one-way ticket.
Yes.
So if you've got something big happening, like when you wear your swimsuit or you're going to a wedding and you don't want her whispering all the bad things in your ear, send her away for a little while. but know that she's going to come back. So you have to have this ongoing dialogue with Betty Bitch or whoever she is, because you can't get rid of her, but you can manage her. So you can say things like, I hear what you're saying. You maybe have a fair point, but I'm not taking that on today.
No. And if I wear this swimsuit, I know it looks better than that one anyway. And with a bit of fake tan, Betty, I know I'll look better than I do when I'm completely pale. So pipe down, Betty.
You've got it, Kim. And so you've changed the relationship with her.
Yes.
And you've put her in control.
Right.
So, that's why it's very important that you manage that relationship.
Do you find for women our age that loneliness is a big problem?
That's a really good point. It can be a huge problem, and even when you're in a relationship.
I was going to say that. Yes, yes.
I have actually been there myself as well.
I have
You can be sitting in a room with someone else and feel like the loneliest person.
Yes.
Because you're not seen or valued. Going back to what we said at the beginning, which seems to be an underlying current, where people are not seen, valued or heard. But again, it's coming back to yourself. If you're not necessarily seen by your partner and you're feeling very alone, then what do you need to do for you? How do you improve that? What kind of steps can you take? How can you take a deep breath and say, I've got everything I need. I don't need to be validated by you. I've got it myself.
I'm just going to write this down because we're coming back to that. Validation.
Big one, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a huge one. And this starts, I was actually talking about this today with one of my girlfriends. This is a huge thing. This starts whenever we're teenagers, whenever we don't feel very loved, we don't feel very pretty, and we run off with the first guy that winks at us, basically. And that's why we do it. And of course, it leads to teen pregnancies. It leads to, promiscuity. I know it's not for everyone, but for a lot of people it does. And then you maybe marry the first guy that's nice to you. And this sort of goes on, this inability to validate oneself. How do you do it?
Well, it's really important to know what really matters to you, what you really value.
Yeah.
And I won't do this now, but for people that are interested, I have this beautiful exercise called the necklace and the jacket. And it's about using what you have to determine the two very top values that you have.
Right.
And then once you've got those, they are like a blueprint for every decision that you make. Right. So you're basically checking in. So for example, my two are love and connection. And before I make any kind of decision or I do anything at all, I check in and I say, is this ticking the box for love and connection, or is it really far away from it? And if it's a hell no, it's like
no, just no.
But you know when it's a yes, you know when it ticks that box because you really feel it. It's like that knowing,
sort of visceral feeling.
Definitely. And that takes us on to the next point of how you change this. It's really tapping into that knowing, that visceral feeling, that gut feeling, that intuition, because particularly as women, we've all got it. It's just that we've pushed it down, dampened it down, and pushed it away sometimes. And society has laid lots of things over the top. And if we can learn to hear that again, then that makes so much difference to us.
Society, this is a hard one. Why do people place so much emphasis on youth? I mean, we all try and say things like, age is wonderful, it's wonderful to get older. But yet we're so negative about getting old. I mean, it's almost like an insult to say, silly old woman,
Yeah.
Why do we have such negative views on older women?
I honestly don't know. I'm going to give another example today. My lovely mother, who actually my husband and I live with, she is 85 this month. Lovely. And she is fabulous. Yeah. She's an artist. She's very elegant. She's just amazing. So she's my inspiration.
Yes.
It's kind of one of the reasons, going back to your question, Kim, that I'm doing this work is because I think there's a lot of work for teenagers, adolescents and teenagers, and there's not an awful lot of support at the other end of this juncture in our life where things all come at you all at once. If you're in your 50s and above, you maybe have aging parents, maybe your children are leaving home. Maybe you're obviously going through the menopause. How could I possibly forget that?
Yes.
So many things. You're maybe just questioning your career. You're being passed over.
Yes.
That invisibility cloak's come around you again. And these things don't tend to happen just one at a time. They tend to all come all together.
Well, they do. I mean, it's like back in the 1950s, they say that they invented the teenager. And it's almost like in the last few years, we have invented the midlife woman. Like, obviously, we didn't, but we're all talking about it. I mean, even 5 years ago, we wouldn't have been sitting here talking about menopause. I go on radio and talk about menopause, and I say it out loud.
Yeah.
And I mean, that would just never have happened. So yeah, all these things do happen. Children leaving home. I mean, that's terrifying. It is terrifying. Your little babies, you've got empty nest syndrome. You've been married to the same man for 20 odd years, and you're looking at him thinking, oh, please, another 20 years of this.
How do I redefine that relationship now that all the other things that kept us together are leaving?
Your skin's sagging, everything's going south. But at the same time, this is the time you maybe have a little bit more money. You don't have to faff about with periods anymore. You've got a little bit of time. You've got time to yourself.
Definitely.
So really, we should be meno babes at this age.
Meno babes.
But we're not.
I love that.
But we're not. For some reason, we're still held back by the weight of society, and we're still held back by ourselves.
I totally agree. And this is why I'm doing this work, because, I'm really passionate about not reinventing midlife, because that makes it sound like you're broken and you need fixing.
We're not broken.
No.
We're just a bit confused.
Yes. And because society has layered you over with all these things, it's like you feel like you want to stick your head out the top and go, I'm here. I'm here. And it's just finding the pathway forward for people to have the confidence and the clarity to be able to do that. And so a lot of my work puts the foundational pieces in place, like I've referenced with the article, like things like self-discovery and faith and self-care and flow. And when I say flow, I mean having that energy, because it is the most amazing time of your life.
Well, it should be.
You've got time for yourself to do what you want when you want to do it.
No more nappies.
No
more like late night feeds.
Yeah, those are long gone.
No more having
No
more having to go to school plays
or school runs for that matter.
Yes.
Those days are gone. So it's much more. I mean, it's not all kind of like dancing in the streets.
But it should be.
But it could be.
It could be. So.
It is very much more about just time for you. What really matters to you now at this stage of your life? What are the things that you really want to do that you've been putting off?
And it doesn't have to be anything amazing. Like you don't have to be, going to Dubai or going to India. It could be as simple as going sea swimming, going for a walk.
Definitely.
Just enjoying yourself with friends, learning to knit. I don't know, learning to drive.
Yes. All of the above. All the ththings that you've just not got around to.
What do you say to women who come to you and say, it's too late? It's too late for me.
Well, are you dead? Because that's the question.
Yeah.
It's never too late for anything. If you've got oxygen in your blood, and
you can do it.
You absolutely can. It's really just having that confidence and that clarity as to the pathway forward for you, which direction is in. It's not about other people telling you what you should be doing.
No,
it has to be driven by your desire and your heart as to what you want.
Yes. Now, I think there's a lot of people out there, like coaches out there, who sort of focus on these massive steps and you're going to change the world and they're very shouty and it's do this. For us menopausal women, I think that's a little bit scary. I don't think we want to be shouted at. We don't want to take this massive action that everybody screams about. So, small steps. What small steps can we take to be better?
It just depends on what you want. It starts with just breathing deeply into what you desire. If you could do anything you wanted to do right now, what would it be? And it could be something like, I absolutely hate the back of my garden. I just have been wanting to do something for a long time. Think about a project and fill it with passion.
Yeah.
So that you get so embroiled in it. And then when you see the steps that you've taken and how you've redesigned something for yourself, you just feel so happy and so pleased. It tends to be such a visual thing as well.
Yes.
That it again goes back to the permission. It's giving yourself permission. You look at it and you think, wow, I did that. Isn't that fantastic? And other people are saying, oh my goodness, Nicola, that's beautiful. Could you do that for my garden? You know, that kind of thing. And that is enough to get you going. So it's just looking for the little tiny hooks. It's small steps. And you're so right. Not everybody wants to be bold and brash and wear all the leopard print they can possibly get their hands on. That's not everybody's personality. And that's not what it's about. It's what works for you.
And that could be something tiny.
It really could.
That could be something like, I want to make new friends. And would you then maybe suggest to them, well, have you thought about joining this group or that group or online or a book club or
absolutely.
a church group? Or
that would go back to what matters to them, what their interests are and what they value.
Yes.
So, you know, if faith was important to them, you know, there's so many community church groups, etc. There's so many things that you can do. But it's not about suggesting lots of things. It's really honing in on what that
because there's no point just trying everything.
No,
because then they're going to get disheartened.
Absolutely.
Right.
And at this stage in life, you need it to be very succinct. You need to get what you need.
Yes.
You know, you're not going to be wasting any time here. You want to be able to hone into that one thing that's going to make the difference for you.
So obviously you've seen a lot of people's changing their lives. Can you think of somebody in particular? It can be a pastiche of a few people. So that have changed after working with you.
Yeah, there's one lady in particular had two things happen. She was actually a very senior nurse, and she had become a little bit of a workaholic.
Yeah.
So she was ticking all the boxes.
Yes.
And when we drilled down as to what she was doing and why, it was because she just didn't feel comfortable in her own skin. And so she felt that she had to be busy the whole time and she had to be seen to be busy.
Yes.
And what this had done, it had stopped her from having a relationship because she was basically a workaholic.
Right.
So two things happened here. She delved into her lifestyle and the way she lived, and she really slowed herself down and took a really good bird's eye look at herself, like a helicopter ride, if you like.
Yeah.
And in doing so, she just thought, I am just burning myself into the ground here. She was starting to feel unwell herself because she was literally burnt out. And she was starting to feel older than she was because of that. And the two things that happened was that she slowed down, went part-time, and met a new man. Because she'd taken the time for herself to think, again, what's important. You've got to put everything around what you value and what you believe in order at this juncture, this beautiful second chapter of your life. Because it's not going to be the same as it was when you were 30.
No, we're different people now.
Absolutely. So that's why there's a little bit of work that needs to happen.
Well, there's a lot of unpicking to do because it took a while to get into this mess, dare I say?
Yes,
so you've got to sort of unpick it.
There's foundational steps, without a doubt.
So if there's people listening to this or watching it and they feel stuck, they know they feel stuck, how will they know that they feel stuck? How do you think that kind of manifests itself? Depression? Anxiety?
Yeah, that's quite an extreme, that's the bit that we don't want people to get to. But it's just, I think the perfectionism bit. I'm so busy. I'm caring for other people the whole time. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Look, I've got a busy badge on me. Look how busy I am. Aren't I clever?
I do that all the time.
And that's a perfect example
I do
of
that all the
somebody
time. The other thing is a sort of feeling of meh. You know that feeling? Where nothing really excites you.
Yeah, because you're going through the motions.
Yeah. And would that be part of it, do you think?
Definitely, yeah. You need that excitement. You need that challenge. Some people, myself included, actually, I thrive on new things and challenges all the time. So it's actually kind of part of my makeup. At one point, I thought there was something terribly wrong with me because I would put all my effort and interest into something, and then it's like, okay, next. But that's just how I work.
That's how you work, yes.
And, you know, again, as you get older, it's appreciating that.
You make peace with yourself.
Definitely.
And all your funny little quirks.
Absolutely. Yes. And you celebrate the quirks as well. You know, the fact that leopard print is so important to me.
It's important to you, yes.
Is lovely. Because it's bold and confident, and it kind of goes with most things. And when you look at a lot of women, 40 plus, let's say, they love leopard print too. But there's a courage that comes with it.
Yes.
And so little things like that all matter.
So if anybody's feeling stuck and they do get in contact with you, what happens next? Do they go and visit you in person? Or what happens?
So there's quite a few different things. First of all, people can visit me at my website, and they can just email me, because I'm giving away something called the Soul Sync Wellbeing Wheel, which is just like a wheel based on what we've talked about, that you can actually look at where you are right now on that wheel and pinpoint it, and use it as a progress tracker for something a little bit later on. So that's a freebie. That's absolutely, really delighted to give that away. But I've got a book called Revel with a Cause that leads into what we're talking about.
Where do you get that?
So on my website.
And what is your website?
It's nicolagoodhew.com. So Goodhew is Goodhew.
We'll put that in the notes below as well.
And the other thing I just want to say with what's being offered is Soul Sync sessions. Quite a tongue twister, that
Soul Sync, that's quite hard to say.
Soul Sync sessions, and it's basically in the moment mentoring. What I've discovered is that a lot of women are so busy that they don't want to go into
got my busy badge on.
They don't want to go into the whole weekly. I used to do Zoom coaching every week with different people. Half the time you get the time with him, you're catching up on what's happened in the last week, and then it's very slow, you're very busy. So Soul Sync sessions cuts that all out. It's mentoring in the moment, and it's going to be over WhatsApp. So once you join the subscription, which is monthly, you have access to me, I have access to you, and it's voice notes and quick little bits and pieces.
That sounds
just
better.
When you need it.
That sounds good, because sometimes whenever you set these things up, then you go, oh God, I have to go sit in a Zoom now with Nicola.
Yes, literally.
And you do think that, you know, you do. So that's...
I know, that's the feedback I got from a lot of my clients. I mean, their work was fantastic.
And they like you. It's not personal. It's just that every time we set things up, you're just busy. It's like whenever you have a night out and the person rings to cancel, you're like, yes.
Yeah. So this situation, you're just about to go on your date. We can have a quick voice note, quick 2 minutes.
What am I going to say? Yes,
that sounds you've terrific. Gone shopping and you don't know whether to get this or that.
You're there.
I'm there. I'm basically in your pocket.
So you're here. Betty Bitch is here. Nicola Goodhew's here. I like that. Nicola, thank you so much for coming in. And I think what we want, our message would be, it's never too late, girls and guys. Of course, guys as well. Like, we're not being sexist here. This is for men too. It's never too late to change things, and it's never too late to do anything.
I absolutely agree with that. And actually, this is just the beginning. We're just getting started here.
We are. Nicola Goodhew, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Kim.
Local Women Magazine presents Local Women Podcast, the show for things that matter.